So, hi everybody, and welcome to this webinar on how to fulfill the environmental requirements with ENOVIA. I'll start with a short introduction, and then we'll look into a few different areas into the materials compliance. One of the things are looking into the overall process for establishing your product's compliance. Also looking into a few different ways to collect and import data for compliance calculation. And also understand how to stay updated and stay in compliance together with the Dassault Systems products and Technia and the MCC solution. In the end, there will be some time for questions and answers, so please type those in the chat. We'll have time for a few questions, and the rest of the questions will be saved in the chat, and we'll come back to you with answers for your questions. You will all be muted during this webinar, so that you know that. My name is Maria Groth. I'm the quality manager at Technia, but I'm also responsible for working with the materials compliance questions and the tools that we have for that. My background is within telecom, working with both quality and environmental issues. We see a number of different challenges with the materials compliance and the regulations that we have today. Of course, one of the top things that we see is the ever-changing regulations with new substances added to the SVHC list for REACH, for instance, or removed or new exemptions added to ROS or to the other compliance definitions that we have. One big challenge is, of course, to collect the data from our supplier base and stay in compliance with that data. Reviewing the declarations, another area. It takes quite some time to go through all the data. And of course, to also handle the change management of your BOM, because you of course make design changes or the regulatory changes will affect your BOMs in another way. You also need to provide data to other groups, customers, or regulatory bodies. That is also something that is quite time-consuming, and also reporting within your organizations, of course. And if you aim a little bit higher, you can look into the ECODESIGN, where you actually try to get this into place as early as possible in the design phase, so that you don't end up in a late review of your BOM and end up with trouble and late changes of your BOMs. If you're not in compliance, you will, of course, risk a financial fine, but as that is usually not the biggest issue, but the damage that could be affecting your brand and also the market share. Technia have a few partners that we work with. We have Dassault Systems, of course, who are responsible for the solution, the Materials Compliance Central within the ENOVIA suite. We also have Tetra Tech, which is a company that both Technia and Dassault work with, and our customers to get customized compliance definitions, for instance, but they also provide a data collection service. Intertech provide regulatory and test services, so they can help you in that area. And we also hold some trainings within ROS, for instance, with Intertech. Enron is a company that supplies the BOM check platform, which is a reporting platform for materials compliance data. Then we have a solution called the ATR Soft Materials Declaration Tool. That is for if you don't have a builder already to, for instance, build a 1752 file for your materials compliance declarations, or the new standard 62474. You can use this builder tool. And that can be used either standalone, it can be used as a supplier portal together with the MCC. GreenSoft is another materials declaration platform where you can find standard parts declarations and you buy that information from them. Technia is the reseller of MCC, and we do a lot of the implementations and workshops around that, and some materials compliance trainings. If we look into the map of all the legal requirements today, it's quite extensive, so it is hard to stay on track here. And it just never seemed to end. The regulations that are supported out of the box in the Materials Compliance Central are these. And you're also provided with a subscription if you buy the tool that provides you with updated files that you import into the tool 6 to 8 weeks after the release of the compliance definitions from the ECHA or other organs then. One of the compliance definitions, of course, that affects a lot of companies that we work with is the ROS. And since that has been recast quite recently, it affects a few more customers that we see now. So we see an increased interest in how to solve the solve the problems in relation with the ROS2 recast. Recently added other medical device companies, of course. We have a deadline there for July 22nd this year. So it's quite urgent now to get everything into place there. And since the ROS directive is also a CE requirement now, CE directive, there's a lot of information to put in place in the reporting. And looking into that, the base, of course, for being compliant is that you make an assessment together internally of your supplier base and the materials that you use. And that can be solved with a few different ways, of course. You can have contractual agreements, you can use material declarations or test results, which is quite expensive usually. Then, of course, you need to evaluate the information that you have from your supplier base and put together your technical file before you can actually have the CE mark in place. So we'll look into a few of those areas that are needed here. For the REACH regulation, there are continuously updated twice per year, number of substances are added. And if you do collect full material declarations, then it's a lot easier to stay in compliance and just reevaluate the information that you already have in your database for your product bomb. Another area where we see an increased interest in finding a solution for materials compliance is the conflict minerals. So that is something that you can also report in the tool, the status updates there for the suppliers and the parts there. And the approved smelters that are used within the conflict materials, they are reported as exemptions in the MCC, so you will see that later. There's also a solution for the automotive side in the MCC application. And it's integrated with the IMDS database. So you can use MCC to collect all your information and evaluate that information before you upload it into the IMDS. And there are also different formats of that you can use for the Japanese standards, for instance. If we look at the more general process, regardless of what compliance definitions that you are affected by, there are different steps that you need to go through. And of course, the first one is to actually set the compliance definitions for your company. That is something that is usually done together with the compliance engineer, together with the product manager, to define, of course, the regulations in place, of course, for your products, but also for your company, where your markets are, where you sell. And also set those up, of course, in the tool then. Perhaps you need to make some adjustments in your substance lists to put everything in place, and analyze if there are some new requirements coming up that you need to take into consideration. You also need to look at the risk. The risk analysis, something I just mentioned, is actually required when you're looking into the ROS recast if you are following the EN 50581 standard, that you're required to do that. But it also is important for you to prioritize your work. It's quite extensive work when you start out finding the material declaration information, so it's good to start in the right end. After you set that up and know what to do, you need to detail a few things, of course, and among other things, your BOM, of course, to make sure that you have all the information in place. You have the suppliers or actually the manufacturers, who are those that know the material content of your parts and products. Do you have contact information for them? Do you have the full description or definition of the parts? Or your internal raw materials, of course. The risks, start looking into the supplier base. What do you know about your supplier base as of today? Are they familiar with the regulatory requirements within the materials compliance area? Or haven't they been working with that? It's quite a big difference between different sectors and different suppliers. So that's the first step, to just sort out things and start with those with the highest risk, where you see that they're not that mature. And then secure the data for the products and supplier. Once you have identified the suppliers that you should start with, you can use the tool to identify the parts affected, the unreported parts, and start creating material declarations and send out. That is something that is usually done otherwise with emails or phone calls if you don't have a tool that can help you out. So this is an easy way to get everything sent out to your supplier base. That can be done for a number of parts together, for a specific supplier or for specific products. You can send them out. And you can also have good traction of what material declarations you have sent and when you receive them. Your suppliers, of course, need to review what they have to do, and they need to complete the material declarations for you. And that you can do, and they can do, in a number of different formats, either using the BOM check, that's one way, or this ATR soft tool, the builder tool, which will generate 1752 files for the new standard 62474. Or there's also a Excel spreadsheet that is applied together with the MCC application called Compliance Connectors, and the big spreadsheet where you can define all your parts and materials and the substances. And then it's uploaded into the tool and the Materials Compliance Central. Then, of course, you need to do the analysis. Is the data correct? Do you trust the supplier with the information that they have sent? So you review that using a lot of different reports that is supplied out of the box in the system. And then you can approve them and roll it up to the parts and eventually the product level also. If you have a big project, putting everything into place, you can access that and review that information for the complete compliance project. And also reviewing how the suppliers are reporting. Are they supplying you with the data that you have requested? Are they on time or not? And to do that, you could use dashboards, for instance, to have an easier overview. We'll look into that a little bit. Maybe you need to initiate some new compliance requests as well if you don't have the information from them that you need. Maybe you will, depending on the result that you already have, need some more information or test records or some. Looking beyond just collecting the data and trying to be in compliance is, of course, as I mentioned, going into the ECODESIGN and looking into get this implemented as early as possible in the design phase. If you do that from the scratch, have a clear requirement within your organization on the design team, and have the information available for your design team. What is the status of my parts and components, my raw materials that I use? Is this the correct material or part to use? Then it's a lot easier to get a compliant product and not be late to the market depending on material issues. Maybe there's still some need for redesigns to cope with some new requirements that you have seen, or that you have information from your supplier base that they are not compliant. Well, that's the way going forward, and performing your design changes also, and assess the final compliance, of course. Then in the end, you need to report your compliance either to customers or to regulatory bodies, or both usually. And there are a number of different formats that you can use that is supplied out of the box, and you can also customize reports if needed. So what you actually need to do, of course, is to have an approach plan. How will you attack this? It's quite work intensive, and the tool makes the work a lot easier, but you still need to have an approach plan. What you should do. You need to also make sure that you have agreements and specifications that are clearly stating the requirements in the material area. You also need to define where to find your information, so you have an approach plan on that as well. The different solutions that you might look into, for instance, BOMcheck, GreenSoft, Total Parts Plus, Silicon Expert, they usually have a fee, so usually not try to evaluate where to find the most of the information needed in your product BOMs. And if you don't have standard parts that you can easily find, if you need then a Compliance Connect that is associated with the Materials Compliance Central, or some customized form to find the information. Supplier portals can also be used for direct communication with the supplier base. And do you need test reports? You also set that in your risk assessment. What kind of information do you request from your suppliers? So for the reporting, there are a number of different reporting formats available out of the box. The IMDS, of course, is one. The IPC 7052, definitely one. You can use the Compliance Connect to send that information. You can also use the JAMP for the Japanese. Looking into the supply chain integration there, you have, as I mentioned, these tools available. There's a little bit different within the different industry sectors what information or what tools to integrate with. Good to know also for the MCC application is that it can be used both standalone and it can be used integrated with either the ENOVIA suite for Engineering Central for those of you that are already working in that one, or with other PLM systems, or with your ERP system, depending on where you have your information. Or BOMs can be imported from those kind of tools. So besides the out-of-the-box tool that's supplied by Dassault, Technia have also added on the MCC the TVC components, the Technia Value Components. And we have a few different areas where we see a really good use of our TVCs in this materials compliance. For instance, of course, the BOM management. You can use the TVCs to stay in context of your BOM and still perform a lot of the actions. You save a lot of clicks in the application that way. It's easier to overview things. We have the dashboards to get an overview, especially for perhaps product managers looking into the compliance status for the portfolio they have. We have a solution called the Personal Browser, which we'll see a little bit later is generating actually the technical file needed for ROS2. And of course, we have the supplier management. You can handle the supplier risks here in the MCC. The risk management is something that is not supplied out of the box in MCC. That is something that we have added in the TVCs. We also have our own integration framework if needed to integrate with ERP systems or PLM systems or other within the organization. Performance is definitely one area where you have good use of the TVCs. It's increases quite a bit when using those. We also add a little bit of information on exemptions, and baselines is also implemented, and easier implementation of files and documents needed for your materials compliance. One sector that we also are working with, it's not released yet, is the message library. So you can also have an easier communication with your supplier base from within the tool. Looking into a little bit of the details on the risk before going into the tool itself. We have implemented the 3-level risk assessment that you can do within the tool. One is, of course, for the supplier. That's the initial one that you do to define who you need more extensive work with during your material collection, data collection. The material itself have a risk level, of course, that is actually something that you can get some help with from the standards that are available, which have a listing of where you usually find the different materials that are restricted by RoHS, for instance. And then the compliance risk on the parts and the products. And we can also generate the technical file from within the system. So you can gather all the information and have a file that is ready for sending out to regulatory bodies or customers if requested. So this is just a summary of the key drivers. As I said, user performance, definitely one of them. We can also make some updates that is perhaps not available in the MCC that you use. You have older versions, and we can actually put those in so that you have access to those also in your older environments. We can definitely use role-based user interface. For instance, if you are a product manager, you can have views that are applicable for your end of work. If you're a designer, you will have other requirements. If you're a purchaser, you will have a different view as well. So you can have that configured so that you don't see all the information that's not necessary for you. We have added some key functionality for the RoHS 2, of course. And we will also work on an increased level of functionality for the conflict minerals, since that is something that is on a basic level right now within the out-of-the-box environment. Which will be implemented in a better functionality in 2015 or 2015X from Dassault. So we will be able to help you out with backporting and make that available for you. Yeah, so then I would like to show you a little bit around in the tool. Sorry. So what I would like to start with is to look into the first step, which is the compliance definitions. So what is needed for your company? This is something that is available out of the box, but you can also add your own customer definition. I just put in one there for just a test purpose. But it's easy to set these up. The compliance engineer within your company can set that up, and it can also be customized if there are some complex compliance definitions that you actually need for your company. The different compliance definitions are supplied in an XML format, so you import those into the tool, and then you activate those that are of interest for your company. And you can also make the different compliance definitions visible within the application or not. So you set that in the matrix here. There are, of course, if you look into RoHS, for instance, a number of exemptions. Those are available here, so you find those here. That is also something that is, of course, updated with the XMLs. And we have added here also the expiration dates and some more detailed information on the different exemptions, so you have that available in the system. Something that you can also view in an exemption Gantt. So you see where they what kind of expiration date you have there. Looking into declarations, you can either view them from the dashboard, starting out there, and see what your status is. You have a chart showing the different statuses of the material declarations that you have sent out. The parts that are accepted already, you have some that are cancelled, received but not yet reviewed and approved, rejected ones, and those just requested. And these dashboards, they are possible to drill down in. So for instance, if you look into those that we have received, you will get the list of those declarations that you have received and are needed to analyze and then approve. Or you can look into this declaration tab, and they are divided then into the requested and received there. So you see, what your workload is as a compliance engineer. And from this one, if we look into the received ones, you can then navigate to the material declaration, look at the information that you have received from your supplier. And see the result that they have uploaded to you. So looking into the compliance properties here, you have, as you see, a table of the different compliance definitions, and they state if there are exemptions or if it's compliant or not, and so on. But there are also a lot of other information that you can collect from your supplier base and record in this tool. And for instance, that is related to if you have surface mount devices, that you need to have also information on the process for the parts. Is it what moisture sensitivity level? Does it handle the temperatures and times, cycle times needed in the reflow, for instance? So that is also possible to collect here. And also some information in relation to the IMDS, for instance. So there are a lot of possibilities here with the tool. If you look at the BOMs, you can either view something called the compliance portfolio, which is your workbench, pretty much, where you see the different parts that you have decided that you need to work with. This is something that you set up on a personal level. So compliance engineer will have this as a daily task list, you could say. What do I have to work with? Or you can also look into a product tab where you can review a product and its BOM with all the information there. So different setups there. And here you see the results, the status information that you have from your supplier base already, and for the different compliance definitions that you've set up in the tool. And you have a pretty easy overview of the status. If it's a red square, it's not compliant. If it's a green arrow, then it's fully compliant, no problem. If you have an arrow with a star, it's compliant but with exemptions. If you look at an assembly level and you have the yellow marking with the C there, it indicates that you have parts beneath that one that is not reported yet. And the yellow symbol says that this one is not reported yet. Also, if something out of scope, if it's a normal part not affected by the packaging directive, it will state that it's out of scope. We have, as I mentioned, a lot of reports that you can do. We can look into, for instance, the unreported parts to find what parts that you actually need to request from your supplier base. So this gives you an answer. These are the parts that are needed. You have already requested this one here. So you see the material declaration there. You don't need to request that. Otherwise, you can create a material declaration and send it out to the supplier. Maybe you want to communicate with your supplier or for that matter, internally also. You can send notifications. So you have a notification field. We can send an email from within the tool. If you do have a change in your compliance requirements, if there has been an update on the SVHC list, for instance, you need to make a roll-up. So you need to do a recalculation of the data in your system. So that's something you also can do here to do the roll-up. If your supplier is not working within your supplier portals, if you have one, they might be sending you files with the materials declarations, XML format, or the 7052 standards, or one of the others that are acceptable. You can import the data for that part that you have here. And you're still, in context of your bombs, you still have access to all that information at the same time that you do this. When it comes to different platforms of finding information, we have an out-of-the-box integration with BombCheck. So this is also something that you can find your data. If you know you have parts within BombCheck, if you have already signed up and they requested your suppliers to use BombCheck, you can find that material declaration information directly from within here and request that, and it will upload into the MCC. That is something that's also possible to do with other platforms, but standard out of the box, it's the BombCheck that is available. But Greensoft or other possibilities exist, of course. I mentioned the technical file that you need to supply to get your CE marking in place if you're affected by the ROS directive. That is something that you can do from within here. So you use something called a personal browser, which extracts all the information that you have in your BOM with the compliance risks and then the supply information, the materials and everything. So you can actually generate that file in here. That, of course, depends on what kind of information you have in your BOM today. So for the technical file, you still need a general description of the product, you need a list of the standards used and such. But if you have all that information in place here and connected with your BOM, you can generate a full technical file there. So I'll actually cancel that one. It takes a little bit of time since it's quite a lot of information in there. If we also look into the suppliers, we can come back to the BOM a little bit later. We have the list of suppliers available in the system here. You can set and edit your supplier risk here. You can review the maps either directly here in this table, or you can go to the navigate to the supplier page. We have that information. There are also some dashboards that can be used on this side, of course, to look into the risk category that you have for your supplier base and active and inactive. So that is also a good overview to see for a purchaser, for instance, or a compliance engineer. What are the high-risk suppliers? What are the parts that I should focus on and the suppliers that I should focus on? So just as the other dashboards, you can drill down and find that information here. A few more things to say about the BOM itself. You can use baselining to keep track of the different material statuses that you have. Perhaps you need to report something to customers or regulatory bodies. You want to keep track on what you have reported, the actual state of the BOM that you had at that time. And then you can just make a baseline and you will find that information. Here we already have a couple of baselines, and then you can use those to compare the information that you have worked with over the time. We also have, let's see, as I mentioned, different reports that you can use to analyze the information. We have, for instance, China ROS. You have a BOM analysis, just gives you the material declaration, you can say, for the part. Oh, sorry. That one was not available, of course. So we'll look into the China ROS instead then. So here, for instance, you have the overview in China ROS then. Those of you that have been working with that directive recognize this one. So they have no exemptions. This is just the raw fact that if you are compliant or not. And those are not reported yet, so you get an overview of that. In the BOM, you can also see the other risks levels that I mentioned before for the material, for instance, if you have high risks, and the overall compliance risk that you can set. If you do have risk components or risk suppliers, you can define what kind of information that you need to collect from the supply base. So, for instance, if you have a high-risk supplier, you can request and set up in your instance of the MCC that you will need some information in place before you are allowed to approve and move forward. For instance, if you need test records in place. That is about the things that I wanted to show in the system. There are a lot of information, and of course we can go into details, but an hour is a fairly short time, so I'll finish up with a few more details and then allow some questions. But if you do have questions or interested in the tool, we can set up customized sessions for that, of course, to go into a little bit of more details for the different directives that you are interested in the most. So what is, why should you have an automated tool, and why should you use full materials disclosure? The tool allows you to gather all the data needed, and that is, of course, the material content information, but also the declarations of conformance. You can also have the test records connected there in content of your BOM, to gather all the information into one place and have a fully evaluated decision for your materials compliance. If you have the full material declarations in place, that enables you to just reevaluate the data that you already have in the system. So that is something that's quite valuable, because if you don't have a tool, if you have to communicate with the supplier base on a constant and regular basis, that will take quite some time for organizations. You will need a lot more resources to handle your materials requirements then. Just looking into the REACH directive, for instance, we have at least twice per year updates, and then all the other regulations that might apply to you. That takes a bit of time to communicate with a large supplier base. You do this, get the subscription for the updates on the compliance definitions with the tool, so you don't have to stay updated on your own. It's of course good to do that anyway, but here you get the help of having that supplied from the SO and from Technia. If needed, you can also add custom compliance definitions. And a lot of companies have a green profile and want to stay ahead of the regulations. So then you can actually implement your own compliance definitions and follow that, so that you have your own programs internally to remove some of the substances that you might see as a problem going forward. Or you may have customers having also a more green profile and want to stay ahead. So you might need to set up some different customer-specific compliance definitions. There are a number of predefined reports that you can use to report to customers and legal authorities, and you can also configure customized reports, of course. So that's definitely a big plus with having a tool to support you and your work in the materials compliance area. This was just a brief introduction to the Materials Compliance Central and how to work within the tool and with materials compliance challenges. We'll go into a little bit of more details in 2 coming events and webinars held by Peter Salin. And that is especially for the medical device sector, since that is the sector that is now affected by the ROS recast already by the 22nd of July this year. So it's getting quite urgent there. So we'll go into a little bit more details there. So please stay tuned and look out for the invitations for these webinars as well. So in that case, I would like to wrap up and see if there are some questions. And if you don't have questions, if you come to think of anything, just contact me or Peter Salin. We'll also have the coming webinars. We can send out some more information on that. I will make sure that you have my information as well, so that you can contact me on this. So do we have anything before we close the session? Don't see any questions so far. Okay, so in that case, I would like to wrap up this session, and thank you very much for your attention. I hope that this was at least some good information for you in looking into the materials compliance area. Technia can be contacted in a number of different ways. LinkedIn, of course, in the website, and Twitter. So you'll find us there as well. Thank you very much. Goodbye, everybody.